Your journey has been long, and mostly unpleasant. But you have finally arrived at your destination, nice and quickly. The one you both have been following clearly didn't expect you to follow him this far, or indeed to such a place. Neither of you know much of this port city, a few days' ride from the city of Luskan, here, so close to the northern edges of the world. You only know it by its name, the Styes. From what you can gather, it is a miserable little port city. Perhaps it was not always this way, but as you approached and entered, you were reminded both, very much so, of rotting carcasses. If a rotting carcass could be a city, then this certainly would be it. There are signs once, this was not always so. The stonework, the woodwork. To build a port in the ocean itself, you know, wizard, would require a lot of magic and finance. And perhaps that was true. But the work is now abandoned. Marble statues and stone walkways lie cracked, broken, dirty. Crude wooden houses lie rotting next to each other, some collapsed, some with then a new house built on top of them almost immediately. Somehow, this dying city survives, though. Still, there are people here, you notice, and somehow it is still a port city, although perhaps a port used by those who don't really wish their business to be known. But more than that, you two don't really know, or really care. All you care about is that your man, Gimbal Featherstone, also known as Lightfinger's Gimbal, tried to lose you here. If you were to make a guess, you'd probably feel that he didn't really think anyone would bother chasing him all this way to such a horrible place, over what he perhaps didn't think was worth much. Both of you know that is not true. Both of you are after something very important. To one of you, it's probably just a job, with a lot of coin being offered. To the other, it is something of uttermost importance, even if perhaps to others the item itself would not seem that important. What matters is that you are not the only people this little gnome thief angered, but you are the only two good enough and relentless enough to track down a quarry all this way. And to be honest, when you arrived, it was easy. Too easy almost. But in one of the very many dinky little taverns that dwell in what you're told is the merchant's quarter of the Styes, you found the room he was in. Didn't even need to bribe anyone. It was quite simply a case of asking if anyone had seen a very particular gnome in these parts. And find him you did. Tell us, Paladin, what happened when you kicked down the door and finally found your quarry, completely surprised at your presence?
As I saw him sitting by his table, counting his money, flinging about his head at the noise, and his eyes widening, I felt a hint of satisfaction. Well, it was more than a hint. My whole body was thrilled. And he sat there, still. I expected a fight, but he was shivering. Now, he wasn't condemned to death for what he did. So, I read him his rights. I told him what we would do with him, and that he was going back to the temple. His, shivering hand went for his dagger. Something flashed in the air. Strange smells erupted. My whip flew, smacked out the dagger, I knew now he had condemned himself to death already. All attacks must be avenged. I knew that he was planning to attack us. As my friend and compatriot helped me out, we quickly brought him down to his knees, and I tied him up to the table at which he had been sitting. I saw it fitting that I would lie out the treasures that he had stolen, the relics from the temple, in front of him, so he could watch them as I flogged the skin off his back. I kept at it for, how long could it have been? Maybe an hour? Maybe just 10 minutes. It's so hard to know when you get lost in these things. In the end, he stopped screaming, of course, and the table was drenched in his blood. I dried off my whip. I collected the bits that were of my interest, and I look over to my compatriot and asks him, "So, is there anything of this you wish to keep, or should I return it to its proper owners and seek them out myself?"
All I need is his body, and, well, there's a few of the items, personal effects of his that I will need to bring as well. Just need to prove that it's him, you see. The bounty was very specific as to what to bring. And I have to commend you on your tenacity. I'm surprised that you could keep going for that long, even after he stopped screaming. It was quite a sight.
I am starting to take on my armor again, having undressed for the occasion. And I nod towards the things that I'm not interested in and say, "Very well, these are yours. And I suppose you will want to sever the head, or will you bring back the entire body?"
That's a good question. I do prefer to bring back the whole thing. It's more elegant that way. I'm sure I can get a hold of a cart, I say. I'm wearing very normal clothes, really. You would think that I was some form of day laborer instead of the war mage that I actually am. I'll arrange something here in town. This is really an atrocious place. I want to get out of here as soon as possible. But I'm sure at least there's going to be a cart available.
It is a cesspool, a den of iniquity. Justice has not seen this place for a long time.
No, it has not. It might be just as well to burn the whole place down, but that would be a waste of good magic. I think we should just leave this place now that we're done here.
I'm sure there are those souls here that are not worthy of vengeance. And I dab my forehead a bit with a piece of cloth as I finish strapping on my full plate armor, shining even in the dim light of the room. This is completely spotless.
And perhaps you could explain who exactly the two of you are. Who do we see when we look upon you, Paladin?
You see a gnome of normal gnomish height, purple hair and purple whiskers, dressed in this fine armor, slightly tanned skin, as if he was working a lot outside. He, on one side of his belt, he carries this little whip that he is now putting back there after having drawn off the blood with a handkerchief. On the other side, a small cudgel, like a baton almost, like a police of this day would wear, or maybe a police of yonder days. He has a very determined look to him, young, even for a gnome, the age of 37. He has quite recently reached adulthood, and is expected in a few, maybe 10 years or so, to settle down. but this little gnome seems zealous. There's not a fire burning in his eyes, so much as a cold determination.
Indeed. Paladin Alston, a paladin of the god Hor. Hor is perhaps not one of the most powerful gods by any means, or even the most popular. But the god of vengeance is respected by those who seek revenge, and sometimes those people can be both good and bad. Therefore, his religion cares little for good or bad, only law and rightful retribution. And what of you, wizard?
Octave is a young man in his mid-20s. He's got short blonde hair and icy blue eyes. He, as I said, wears common clothes, and it's difficult to tell that he possesses the magical capabilities that he does possess. He grew up in Candlekeep on the Sword Coast and was trained by the Harpers there. Among them, a certain Gorion. But after his mentor's untimely death, he lost his way and began experimenting with magic, attempting one dangerous and experimental, unsanctioned spell combination after another, until the Great Fire of 1371, when Candlekeep Inn burned down, killing Winthrop and a number of other citizens. He was promptly kicked out, and he spent the last 6 months on his own, taking on odd jobs and working as a mercenary and a bounty hunter. This is not the life he wants to live, though. He wants to get back to Candlekeep. But the only way back in is to come with a large enough donation of money to rebuild what was lost. And more than that, probably, to get forgiveness for what he did, if that is even possible. But he believes in his heart that it is, and the first step towards that goal will be to, well, bring this quarry back and get the reward, and then move on to the next one, and then the next one after that.
Indeed. Well, here you are in this small, cramped room in a ramshackle inn. The floor covered in blood, a dead gnome, flayed, and a large selection of trinkets. After all, now you see his belongings, most of the stuff he had on him would be considered trinkets. Yes, to you, Paladin, the golden cup from your temple is of extreme importance, but largely only because it is from your temple. Its value, probably not that much, really. The same for you, Octave, as well as the gemstones, a couple of forks, knives, a nice plate or goblet. The main prize for you, of course, was a small signet ring belonging to Lord Fairweather. He really wanted it back and was willing to pay quite a lot. It doesn't take much to assume that your dear little gnome thief probably thought no one would miss any of these things. That was why he robbed so many people all at once and got out of town so quickly. Unluckily for him, both of you were quite good at your jobs and were quite relentless in pursuing. Still, the mission is complete.
Excellent. I wonder if it was some kind of disease. Do you think that's what it was? Some kind of kleptomania? Was that what made him do it?
What he did?
Yes.
Yes, surely. A disease of the mind. Something that must have struck him perhaps at an early age, since he has been going at it for quite some time. It is my failure that has resulted in this, and I hold the cup up, being stolen in the first place.
Well, he's certainly paid for his disease then, I suppose.
He has. It is cured. It is purified from his body. A man does not get much more pure than this, I say, and I look at the dead carcass.
I suppose you're right. We're only pure when we are born and when we die. But what say you? Shall we get out of this cesspool? I must say that I've found working with you to be very efficient. You are determined, and you make things happen. Perhaps we can put our efforts together. Perhaps there is something I can assist your temple with. There are other ill-doers that we can punish, that we can exact vengeance upon. I believe it could be quite lucrative, no?
I place the goblet in a specifically designed little box with stuffing around it, a turquoise soft stuffing, seemingly as if it was made particularly for that goblet. And I close it and I say, Octave, yes, I have found our cooperation to be very forthcoming. It reminds me of Winfric Sockhart. Did I ever tell you about him?
I do not believe that you did. Was he a former partner of yours?
No. Oh, no. You see me blush at this. I had never had the honor. He was one of the greatest, the absolute best, an investigator of the temple. Oh, he once actually traveled himself with a mage, a war mage, and I thought to myself, I will never find someone worthy as such. But now, well, I am wondering to myself, perhaps this is the time to do some great deeds, like that of Winfric himself.
Yes. How about a crusade, perhaps?
A worthy cause.
Bringing vengeance upon the non-believers. I believe that can lead to quite a lot of good income, shall we say.
Well, you say non-believers so lightly, but it would have to be someone who has truly deserved punishment. I have too far progressed in my career now, too far invested to go after the small-time ones. Must be something worthy of my attention. You understand, surely, Octave? You have been working so long for yourself.
Yes, I understand. We shall find something that is going to be both worthy of my time and worthy of your efforts. But come now, let's leave this place. It stinks.
Very well. And I pick up my final things and flick off a grain of dust that had landed on my armor, and I start moving out. Let's see if we can track down a cart of yours.
That's what we attempt to do. We try to leave this dwelling that we have found ourselves in and try to see if we can find some merchant or something like that. And what do we see as we get out of this place, as we leave this building?
Well, as you leave the tavern that you were in, you don't draw much attention, it seems. The tavern had few people in it, other than one or two sailor sorts, keen to keep their eyes on their drinks, and the bartender who told you where the man was, who, again, doesn't seem remotely bothered or even interested in what you did upstairs, and seems quite content to ask no questions. You leave this tavern. You are confronted by the sounds and smells of what you have been told is the merchant's quarter of this port city. Although crowds perhaps is putting it a little strongly, people tend to stick in huddles, milling about. Even though it's midday, the sky has a very unpleasant grey cast to it. You noticed when you came into this city on the water, in fact, that far to the north, a great amount of smog, smoke, yellow in colour, seeming to emanate from that part of the city and kind of slowly cover the rest of it. You were advised when you came, Octave, to always carry with you a handkerchief to cover your face, because the air has a very unpleasant quality to it. You, Alston, on the other hand, are fine, because of course your god protects you from all mild irritations and infections, and you never need to be concerned about that. But you, Octave, will definitely want to fasten your handkerchief to your face now.
And I do so. And the stink, it bothers me as soon as I get out into the air again. Oh my, it's even worse than I remembered it.
You alright, Octave?
I don't know. Maybe it was all that blood and then this. Maybe I have a little bit of a weak stomach for this. I think I need to train myself.
You also need to roll a constitution check.
And I roll 8.
You fasten your handkerchief tight to your face, but already you feel a slight tickle in your throat. You have a cough. That's not good. That's probably going to be a bit irritating.
Ugh. Ah, God damn it.
Still, it doesn't take long to find some merchant stalls. Although, for a merchant's quarter, there's no real order around here. Shops seem very few, stalls even less. But when you do find somewhere, in a sort of run-down, half-demolished building, someone has a cart for sale. It's in pretty bad quality, but you don't really think you're going to get anything better anytime soon. The market quality here seems rather low, at least for basic things. Keeping in mind you, of course, don't go down any alleyways into strange, shadowy areas looking for anything suspicious.
Indeed, no. The gnome I have put in a sack. He's a relatively small person, after all, so it is not particularly difficult to carry him around. I put the sack in the cart, and I begin pulling it. I suppose we have left our horses by the tavern. We came with horses, yes, or is this a place that one arrives to in another fashion?
You did indeed come by horse, but one thing you've noticed is that the city has an awful lot of riverways, and a lot of the locals seem to get around a lot quicker on skiffs. Most of these islands seem connected by rickety bridges, old paths, ropes. Probably once was a lot easier to get around, but so many roads seem to have fallen into disrepair or been blocked off. It's quite tricky to get around on horse, but at this point, the merchant's quarter is quite close to the mainland. You see, the interesting thing about the Styes is the whole thing was built in what seems to be quite a natural cove, if you will. Once, there would have been nothing but sea here, but it seems some people decided to build things here, making use of the good area for a port.
Well, that's very entrepreneurial of them. I suppose this city serves its purpose well, even though it is horribly stinky.
It is interesting, because it must come from some sort of ambition initially.
Yes.
These constructions. I do not understand, however, whoever would want to have an honest job in a place like this. Do not misunderstand me. I don't encourage anyone to have some, an occupation outside of the law, but if you were an honest fellow, why would you want to stay here?
Love, perhaps. Love makes men do strange things. That's the only thing I can think of. Well, that, or maybe there's a lot of gold hidden here, or some resource, or, I don't know, slaves, whatever people deal with in this part of the world. The sooner we're rid of it, the better. Can we leave now? Can we go?
Sure. I think we have everything we need, unless there is, I would be curious myself to find out anything about possible bigger fish to fry in such a place as this.
Oh, you want to look for work already now, you say? Well, this does seem to be a city of ill repute. Probably has quite the criminal element. It's good thinking, actually. I wonder if I could store this body somewhere in the meantime if we were to find something. How far off is where we need to take this quarry? How many days ride off is it?
Back home is probably going to take you 5-6 days travel.
Oh my god. This body's going to start stinking. I have to figure out something to cool him down. Well, I do have magic for that, so that should not be a problem. Well, it is a long ride back. I suppose if we wanted to make this journey worth even more of our time, I suppose we could look for something. Shall we go and see if there's a job board or something like that?
Yes, and might I suggest a barrel of salt, perhaps? A tiny, not tiny, shapely, bodily sized little barrel of salt would keep the body somewhat away from unwanted elements.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. I'll arrange for that, and before we head off to look for other work, I make sure that the body is cooled down using my my ice magic, and also covered in salt. I don't want it to be, well, destroyed.
You make your preparations in a little alleyway. Again, no one seems really to want to bother you. Every now and again, you have noticed some men who are armed go by, with little brown bands attached to their arms. Probably what stands for the militia, you think, or the law, as you've seen them a few times coming and going in little patrols. But again, their armor to you, Alston, is at times rather mismatched, and they never really have seemed to have been bothered by you two, other than occasionally a few glances at you, actually. You've noticed a few people have looked down, quite literally, at such a fine gnome in such fine armor. Does stand out a little. Octave, on the other hand, seems to fit in a little better.
I observe them go by on the outside as the bodies being stuffed into this little keg of salt. And I say, well, there seems to be some sort of organized guard here. Then I do not know if they are following any sort of reputable employer. But we could at least turn to them if we wanted to find out more.
Yes, I suppose we could. Let us see what we can find. So what we're looking for now then is we're looking for either a job board of sorts or a person in charge. Someone who might be able to point us towards some honest work that might fit our particular set of skills.
Certainly. You go about a little, inquiring for some people. To be honest, not much comes back. Not many people seem that interested in speaking to you if it isn't about fishing, buying something, or local gossip that you have no interest in. However, as you are passing by an alleyway, you, Alston, hear something. Sound of children laughing. You probably think to yourself, quite a pleasant sound. But then you hear the sound of someone crying out in pain, an older voice. Again, the laughter of children, someone crying out in dismay. It seems to be coming from a little alleyway to the left of you. What do?
I pull out my wand, wand of the War Mage, and I make myself ready for possibly having to use it. This does not bode well, and I nod to my compatriots. We had better check that out. Perhaps this may, well, be worthy of our time, and it certainly sounds like someone might be in need of some vengeance there.
As I am swaggering along, my shining pauldrons moving with my graceful steps, I stop as I see you pull out the wand, and I hear this sound, and I say, "Ah, it sounds like youngsters, possibly harassing an old person. This we must put a stop to, of course."
Of course. You must respect your elders, I say, and I move towards the commotion.
You go down this little alleyway and find yourself at a little side street by an old, crumbling statue of what you assume once was a very fine-looking knight of some sort. You see a bunch of children gathered around what looks like an older man with his pack currently spilled out on the ground with lots of papers and maybe a few little vials of something. The children are all going, "Murderer, murderer, you're friends with a murderer, stone him, stone him," and they're throwing little rocks at him. Most of them seem like a little pebble or two, but one larger kid seems to be getting ready quite a large rock. The old man in question is trying to wave them off with his cane. "No, please, stop this, no, you got it wrong."
I hold up my hand and I say, "Children, stop right there."
The children all stop, turn to look at you, and most of them look very confused. The one holding the big rock laughs a little. "Oh, look, gnome! Oi, get out of here! This ain't your part of town."
"What are you up to, children? Why are you harassing this old man?"
"We're teaching him a lesson. Yeah, he's friends with a murderer. Murderer.
I walk up to them, thinking to myself that these are just South youngsters. They do not know better, but I wonder what there is to this situation. What do you mean that he is a friend of a murderer? And I look at the old man as well.
No, they don't. It's not quite as simple as that. Please, kind sirs, would you help me here? At this point, the bigger boy holding the rock is like, he's friends with the Lantern Man. That's right, the Lantern Man who killed all the people. Yeah, and we're going to teach him justice. He's getting ready to throw his large rock. What do you do?
I say, you will stop right there. I command this youngster to stop what he's doing.
He looks at you for a moment, confused. He frowns. For you, sir.
If there is injustice, then I will be the one dealing with it. But I will need to know more.
I call forth a small fireball that I'm sort of balancing in my hand, and I look at the boy. I just stare at him. I don't say anything. I just have this ball that I'm balancing in the air.
Most of the children begin to run away immediately, seeing this display of sorcery. They scurry away into alleyways, one or two crying. The older boy sees everyone abandoning him, frowns at you, Alston, spits on the floor, puts the rock down, and runs off.
I try to call after him to stop and to explain himself, but as I see him disappear, I make a huff of annoyance, and I turn to the old man. And I don't ease up my gaze in any way. I look just as sternly at him as I did to the children. Now, will you care to explain yourself? What is this about the murderer and a lantern man?
He is in the process of picking up his things, trying to collect papers and a couple of vials and one or two things that might look a little strange to most people, but actually to a wizard and a gnome, look like some rather interesting clockwork little things. Oh my, well, first of all, sirs, thank you so much for helping me. You mustn't blame the children, it wasn't their fault. Okay, maybe that one with the big rock was a bit uncouth, but it's all a bit of a misunderstanding, I have to say. Okay, first of all, let me introduce myself. I am Master Rephram. I live here as a humble lower cleric of Lathander. Not that many here care for such things. Would you do me the pleasure of your names?
Interesting, you are a cleric. I am Alston, a paladin in the service of Hor.
Oh, Hor. He gives a respectful nod, though he seems a little nervous. Yes, quite a god of, harsh measures, but still, law is law, and yourself, fine, wizard, yes?
Oh, a cleric of Lathander, you say? Do tell me about the sun and the light and all that. That's what you people are all into, yes? Sorry, my name is Octave. I'm a wizard of sorts, fire and ice, elements of the various kinds. I evoke and invoke, and I make things explode when they have to.
Well, I'm very happy to have met you both. I was a bit worried there that I could have got hurt, and then I would have been late for getting home.
Well, surely a cleric of Lathander cares about that which is just and right, also?
Oh, well, yes, of course.
So what were these children going on about?
Well, it's a rather long story, actually. I tell you what, though, you've been so gracious to me. Where did you arrive to our fine city? If you would accompany me back home, I would offer you some food, maybe some shelter for a moment. You seem a little fatigued. At this point, both of you do feel the fatigue set in a little. Your journey was very quick. You stopped little to rest in order to get your quarry quickly, and it is already now midday, and you haven't really eaten or rested for some time.
You know, that does sound quite good. I am actually quite tired, and it would be nice to get away from this air, I say, as I have the cloth in front of my mouth, and I cough. It would be nice to get into some place that perhaps smells a little bit less bad.
It would be my honor to be welcomed into the house of one of the servants of the Morning Lord.
Oh, wonderful, indeed, and it would be my honour as well, good paladin. Your orders are always very respected. Well, maybe not here so much. Come, I'll take you back to my home, and then I'll give you some food, and then, well, if you're really actually interested, I'll explain, although it's not really a pleasant story. Come, let's go get a skiff. He directs you quickly down a few alleyways, which then lead to one of the waterfronts, of which there are many. The water in this part of the city is very grey, dull, little bits of pollution, rubbish floating in it. But it flows, at least, as this part of the city seems closest to the actual ports, which you are now close to as well. Not any great warships or galleons come to such a place as this, but lots of small fishing vessels, and small seaworthy vessels do dock in such a place, it seems. He calls down a little skiff, and a man comes, gives him some coin, and he motions for you to follow. Come, this way, we will take a boat straight to the alchemist quarter. That's where my home is, just on the outskirts.
Lead the way.
You get on the boat?
I look at the boat a bit skeptically, but it is a means of transportation here locally, so this is what we do. I'm not a big fan of getting into boats, particularly with my heavy armor on me, but I do so anyway.
And that water does look quite nasty, but, well, I suppose they are used to taking care of their boats here and making sure you don't fall into it, because that would be the worst.
What do you do with the cart with a body in it?
I've probably then left that with, I have left that with the tavern. I've paid the tavern keep some money to just put it away in one of his storage rooms. Probably paid more than I had to, but I just needed to ensure that, well, that nothing happens to this body. It is, after all, quite valuable, at least to me.
And so you begin your journey across the waters. As you go, you see every now and then a few other boats going past you. It's rather busy, people going to and fro the various little alleyways of this port city. Again, from the water you can see there are many, many little river alleyways and river shortcuts all over the place, crisscrossing over various rope bridges that look a lot more recently constructed than some of the stonework you saw where you were earlier. You begin heading towards the mist and fog. Having to pass through it, the air is even worse for a moment. You do see the master take his own cloth out to cover his face for a moment. The haze clears, and you can see multiple places where you think maybe all this smog is coming from. It seems somewhere in the distance there are multiple buildings squelching out plumes of smoke, yellow, red, green. The water starts getting even more unpleasant. You are still in parts which can be sailed, but you notice a few miles to the right of you at least, you can see some of these alleyways starting to just end in sludge and mud, the water having long clogged up. Luckily, though, your route takes you past that, and you dock in at a little port, and the old man beckons for you to follow. I apologize for the smog. Unfortunately, the alchemists, No law here, you know, to tell them to stop doing things. They're just constantly belching out new experiments and concoctions, and of course the councilmen don't care at all. It's all terrible, terrible.
This is quite an industry, isn't it? What exactly are they producing?
Anything they could think of. Potions, elixirs, concoctions, oils, magical things. I don't know. It's all very uncouth, if you ask me.
Well, it's science. They are experimenting to see what is possible for humans to make. They are bending reality. I have a certain respect, to be honest, for those kinds of experiments, although I will concur that they are not taking care of this place. You have to keep control over yourself. You cannot let the whole place become polluted like this. That is not a sustainable way of handling this.
I suppose not, but it is also one way of those who decide to reside in a place like this to live in a constant form of punishment.
It's not quite the way I would look at it. We were here first. They were the ones who came and caused all this. The skies were not always miserable and grey, the water not sludge. Oh, it was a long time ago, and it matters little now.
How long have they been going at it, did you say?
Oh, well, I believe... Let's see, the councilman took control about 40-50 years ago, and I believe these alchemists, most of their activities been for the last 20-30 years.
20-30 years. Then they must have made quite the organization. I'm imagining they are creating artifacts, perhaps? Items? Something that would require potion making? These kinds of things?
Well, I wouldn't know. I try and avoid them when I can. I mean, I myself am an inventor, although I invent things to help people, not pollute their waters and cause sickness and misery.
And is this sanctioned then? Is it deemed legal in this part?
Oh my goodness. You are strangers to these parts, aren't you? None of it is sanctioned at all. That is the point. That is why they are here.
This is a place of complete freedom. I could see how some people would be attracted to that in spite of, well, that would be one way or one reason to tolerate all this horrible pollution and stink. You can do whatever you want here. Such a place is uncommon, I would say.
Well, not entirely true. You're free to do what you want as long as it doesn't interfere with the councilman's laws and rules. But they tend to benefit them. Anyway, come to my home. Come. We shouldn't stay out here too long. The vapors aren't very healthy for most. It's very easy to catch red fever and tinker's rot and all the sorts of things.
I look at Octave, who was already coughing a little bit. And let's see. How is it now? How is he?
Again, he's been coughing quite readily for a while. It's not horrific. It just feels like an unpleasant cold is coming on.
Yeah, I'll be all right. I sort of notice you seeming to perhaps having noticed my cough, and I said, "Don't worry about me, friend. This will pass. It's just a cold and this stink."
I reach out and I place my hand on your shoulder, and I can only do this because we are sitting down in the boat, of course, otherwise I wouldn't be able to reach up. I say, well, you are not traveling with me, and you will be under mine and horse protection. I will do my best to ease your burdens. But I don't decide to remove what he has right now. Maybe when we get to a place that is not already gonna make it worse again.
He leads you on through a few streets. This part of the city is even more dilapidated than the one you were in. It seems all the good stonework perhaps is reserved for this merchant's quarter, while here a lot of it looks far newer. Ramshackle wooden ports, built on old wooden ports. As if the place has fallen down a few times, it is constantly having things rebuilt on it. Again, the belching of these warehouses and strange labs is far off, giving the whole area this yellowish tint. But you actually come to what looks like a modest hovel, and as you are let in, actually have a moment of respite from the clamour and pollution from outside. The air in here is fresh. The home reasonably well lived in. The walls are covered with scrolls, potions, little boxes of things, strange little mechanical devices, little clockwork birds and clockwork animals. The craftsmanship is average, especially, you think, Alston, knowing the might of gnome ingenuity, but it's something. You are directed inside to a place with a few chairs, and the old man calls out, Eleanor, I'm home, I'm back. We have some company. If you could fetch them some food. They've been very good friends to me. You hear a lady call out from somewhere, Rephram, you've returned. I was worried. You've been gone a while. What did you find out today? Oh, I'm sorry, not much, my dear. Let's get them some food first and get them seated. The woman looks at you. She's young, reasonably free of blemish, a little dirty, you see, but dressed in a sort of servant's outfit, seems reasonably respectable enough.
As we sit there by the table, I see one of these mechanical little contraptions, and I think it is the shape of a bird, and I reach out to it and then send a questioning glance towards our host, and I ask, may I?
Oh, certainly, yes. Oh, that's one of my favourite ones. Yes, I've tried to really work on the little engine at the back to really create something that, can fly for a good while on its own without too much need of turn of the key.
I take it and I examine it for a bit, seeing, do I think this is a reasonable thing that he is trying to make? Would it be possible to hover how he has constructed it currently?
It certainly would.
And I bring out my tinker's tools, and I fold them up on the table, and I say, may I make some small adjustments?
Oh, my, of course. You are master of the arts as well. Yes, how exciting. He seems very excited about you tinkering with his thing, almost to the point of distraction.
I start doing this effortlessly as we talk, and I ask, so, to the matter of the story, then. A lantern man, was it?
Oh. He seems a little disappointed at the change in subject. Yes, no, it's important to speak of. Very well, let's have a seat. He sits down, and Eleanor comes in and brings you all some food and drink. She seems herself very interested when you mention Lantern Man, and goes, they come to help. Have you got people to help us, Rephram? Oh, well, Eleanor, maybe not help. That's a very... We can't assume such things. But I'm going to inform them. They seem interested in knowing. Okay. So, the Lantern Man... It's the name of the killings that have been happening for the last 6 months or so. The Lantern Man killings, so called because the victims, people say, before they were dead, people could see a mysterious red lantern in the gloom, and then the bodies are found. It's been plaguing the city for months now, causing a lot of misery, especially in the fishermen and the poor, who have been mainly all the victims.
I immediately detect a loophole in your story. Do you mean to tell that they are survivors of this lantern man?
No survivors.
Then how can you claim that they have seen a lantern, if they are all dead?
I don't know. That's what people say. You know how gossip spreads. Seem to catch. The people weren't being murdered. They were the people seeing a lantern and then suddenly screams and they'd find a body somewhere. That sort of thing.
There would be witnesses, of course, of some kind, although they may not have seen who did it, and that's why this story has taken on a sort of almost a mythological tone to it, of this lantern man. It seems like some kind of supernatural being.
Any other pattern of how the bodies have been, found?
Actually, I only know a little, because I've been looking into it. Because, well, the man was a good man. That's where the misunderstanding comes into play with the children. At this, Eleanor looks visibly upset and comes at he was my brother.
And he was murdered? He was one of the victims of the Lantern Man?
No, they say he was the Lantern Man. They hung him 2 days ago.
Oh, did he?
Then he was a victim of the Lantern Man in a sense, because of course he was not the guilty one, no? He was simply lynched because the people wanted to exact justice on someone, even if it not be the correct culprit.
You do not believe he was guilty?
Eleanor nods very vigorously. Of course not. He was my brother. He was an honest fisherman. He would never have done... Rephram holds a hand up. She is correct. Unfortunately, though, it's not quite as simple as that.
I try to get a grip of how she is reacting, if she is in denial, or if this might actually be the truth. Does she think her brother would be capable of such a thing?
Roll an insight check.
23.
She 100% believes what she is saying. She very much believes her brother to be innocent, and is very sure of this. There is no deceit in this woman. She's a very earnest person, you can tell. She's easy to read, really.
I nod to myself, and I say, yes, I believe you. So, what do you believe will happen now? You think he will strike again, and then it will be just shown that an innocent has died?
He already has, my dear Paladin. He already has. Just this morning.
Oh, indeed. Tell me.
As simple as that. Another body was found in the exact manner of all the others deceased. Pretty much proving that it wasn't him. The problem is there are a few complications Eleanor is not quite telling you. You see, I have been looking into it because he was a friend of mine, a friend. She works for me, she's a good lady. He was a good fisherman. He would never have done such things.
And that is why the children attacked you? Because you were familiar with this one that was innocently hung?
Yes, exactly. Everyone else... We are alone, if I'm honest with you. Pretty much everyone else believes it's all sorted. The problem is, when he was arrested, he was found over one of the victims with the blade in his hand.
Ah, that is a complicating circumstance.
But the thing is, Rephram believes there could be... Tell them, Rephram, tell them. Yes, I will. Here's the thing. It is very possible that he did commit the crimes. But... a few things don't add up, do they? Number one, if he was committing them alone, why are they continuing? Number two, how could a man like that do such things? He denied it, when they took him away. He was confused. He had no idea why he was there. I don't need to tell you, wizard, but there are many magics that can affect the mind and make people do things they do not wish to do.
You think he was intentionally framed to be at this position at that time?
I definitely do, yes, more so. I believe that there could be more people involved than we think. The problem has been that the councilmen are never, the only reason they even looked into this is because even they have been losing workers and people, and even in a place such as this, people being murdered every week for 6 months is not pleasant, especially when they are completely innocent people.
I am not surprised that not too much effort has been made so far considering the state of the place. But these killings then, do they have any sort of connection? The ones that are dead, would they be of interest of someone or an organization to be perhaps to be disposed of, shall we say?
Not really. If anything, that's the point. None of them directly worked for any of the councilmen's organizations. They were all fishermen, fisherwomen, washer ladies, washermen. Some of the last decent people in this city. It might seem not obvious to you, but you might think I'm crazy. But I came here to help people many years ago. I've lived here, trying to do the work of Lathander, of course. Spread his light and his heals. I mostly focus on the poor. There are good people here. Not as many as there once were. The city was not always like this. It used to be known as the Pleasure Isles of Zanadar, It was a wonderful place for a time, a couple 150 years ago.
Yes, I am sure. And then a tragic history unfolded. But that is, I'm afraid, irrelevant to this particular case. These persons, then, that were dead, has any other investigation been taking place to their whereabouts or their places? Your brother, for example, you did not find anything that was of raising suspicion in his home?
Well, there's nothing in his home. It's a simple hovel, and... Well, actually, tell them, Reverend. Well, here's the thing. I've been trying to look into it, but the problem is they don't really want me looking into it. He looks a little nervous and looks to the windows.
They?
The councilman, the constables. He was taken to the Hopener Asylum immediately. Not anyone allowed to see. I was going to investigate there myself, but then I was waylaid by the children today. And then he was hung, and then his body taken straight to the crematorium to be incinerated. I did offer my services to speak to him past death. After all, it is one of my skills. But they are all very keen to have that be their man and have there be no more investigations. I'll be honest with you, I think one of the councilmen, maybe himself, is involved in... That's normally what happens when all the constables don't want to help you. Someone's making them be quiet. I don't know.
Someone's clearly hiding something. That much seems to be true. You said also that all the victims, that they were connected to fishing and washing, and would it be true that they were all working in direct connection with the waterfront? And of course this is a port city, but it seems specifically tied to the water, no?
Yes. No, that's a reasonable assumption to make, yes, the waterfronts. But then there are many.
Well, I wonder, but I suppose that the only way to come to the truth of this matter would be to then follow the leads that we have. So what do we have? We have some form of cover-up happening here. We have the councilmen, obviously up to something. Is there anything else that you can think of that might be able to give us a clue of what to do next?
Well, the asylum is where I wanted to go next, but I was getting concerned for my safety because, well, like I said, the garrison didn't want me looking into it anymore, and when the councilmen think you are troublesome, then they have ways of making you disappear. I admittedly don't feel very brave anymore going out, but maybe if you went to the asylum... And Eleanor's like, yes, that's where he was. The last few days he was held there. Maybe someone saw something there or knows something there. Yes, indeed, it's not a very pleasant place, I warn you, but the only thing we have, really, otherwise his body is gone and there's nothing else really to investigate. You could, of course, have maybe looked into the murders today, but I'll be honest with you. I think you will not make any progress at all with the garrison. They do not want anyone investigating, but they probably wouldn't expect you to go to the asylum.
What do you think, Alston? A trip to an asylum in a polluted, dark, stinking city? That sounds like a lovely activity for a day, don't you think?
I have nothing to offer you, but the man was innocent. I know this. Something has happened. If we could find out what it was, if we could find some solid proof, even that might be too hard for them to ignore.
Yes, and if we find the truth, and this is some kind of high conspiracy, well, vengeance can be had, and I don't know, maybe there might be some bribes that can be gotten to, protect some of the less guilty parties in this, shall we say. I'm sure that there will be plenty of opportunities.
I'm wondering, do you already have a theory here, Mr. Octave? If you think that these dead bodies... I turn back to Refrain. The dead bodies, they were retrieved all in good order and buried.
Burned? Well, we don't have any graveyards here, friend. We're a water city. The crematorium, all bodies are taken there and burned immediately.
So then no one would seem to be gaining from the actual dead body, the people themselves having no particular ties. I don't have any theories myself. Do you have something, Octave? Otherwise, I suggest we do as you say. We visit this asylum, was it?
I think that a visit to the asylum is the best. I have some theories involving, well, the things that perhaps dwell out in the sea and fell dealings. I have heard many stories of such occurrences out in the world, but it is too soon to jump to conclusions. I think some investigation is in order, and I am certainly looking forward to getting my hands dirty looking through an asylum. That sounds like a great deal of fun, actually.
Very good, my friends. Yes, thank you. I don't have much to offer you, but this is going to be so helpful. Whatever you find, come back and share it with us, because then we can offer some advice. We'll be staying here. And Eleanor comes forward and says, yes, sirs, please, if you could prove my brother was an innocent man, this would mean everything to me. He did not deserve such a fate. He was a good man. I promise.
I finish my tinkering with the mechanical bird. I finish also the meal. It was very... How was the meal?
It was very pleasant. Simple, but cooked well.
Yes, and I feel reinvigorated now, and that we both have a task, and that our energy has been replenished.
Yes, to the asylum. May the light of the morning lord be with you, I say to him as we depart.
And may his light shine and help you in times of need. And you depart. He gives you some directions to this asylum, of course, before you leave. It is in the High Quarter, which is apparently where some of the city's government buildings still remain. Not that they are used as much as they once were, if at all. It is away from the mud and smog of where you are, back on, again, what seems to be actual foundations that once perhaps were quite splendid in their decoration and ornamentation. Eventually, though, taking a skiff again, you arrive where he told you. The Hoppener Asylum. It is a squat grey building, possibly once an old prison. The windows are barred, the walls are bare. It seems to have at least 2 floors that you can see. It's not that large. As you go to its door, you see an old faded sign bearing the words "Welcome Home" hanging above the entrance, which is a large, quite well built iron door, locked with a little hatch at the top.
This is as far as we get without knocking, I see. And I go up to the door, and I knock on the door.
You knock on the door. You wait a good minute. You knock again. The shutter opens, and a pair of blue, rather dull-looking eyes regard you. Yeah?
Greetings. We have been sent to investigate the whereabouts of the former... what was his name?
You were told his name was Jam.
John, yes, he was here. He was a patient here, you may say.
Yes, we believe something might have been left behind, and now we must kindly ask you that we just have a quick look around.
The eyes stare at you for a few minutes. Why?
Well, good sir, you see, there are many things that have gone wrong in this city as of late. I do not wish anything else to happen to people like you, working here, doing your best here. All day long you work so hard, and you make an outstanding service to those who are trying to make a living. But you, sir, you have been needing to work extra hard for no reason because of crimes being committed, and that is why we suspect and why we must beg you to aid us in our venture. It is because you have a chance to make a big difference.
Roll a persuasion check.
10.
He kind of squints at you, saying, I do good work, yeah. Alright, hang on. You hear the sound of the door being slowly unlocked, and it opens, leading into a rather dark area with a couple of torches for light. The individual behind the door is a rather large, bulky youth with short brown hair, a couple of warts on his face, and some rather unpleasant-looking boils. You can come in. I'm going to get the physician, Mr. Yes, I'll go get Mr. Trantor. You stay there.
Just a moment, young boy. I pull out 5 bits of silver and I give it to him. This is for doing good. This is for trying to do better for the sake of doing good.
He takes the coin very quickly. It just nods, whatever you say. Yes. He does actually maybe hurry along a little. And after a few seconds, he points you to a little wooden door inside and says, "Alright, he's ready to see you. Come this way." And he opens a little wooden door leading you into the asylum. As the main door closes behind you, already you can hear echoing in the distance the sounds of moans, screams, shouts, echoing all over the place. But he leads you into a small office where there is a man sitting at an old desk. He is wearing a sort of white doctor's smock. He himself is an older gentleman with a rather sharp face. "Oh, these are the Visitors, very good, Bree. You can go. And Bree goes off, leaving you with this man. The man looks at you both, looking down slightly at you, Alston, and says, "You are here to do what again? Why do you need visit us this day?"
My name is Alston. I am a paladin in the service of Hor. I have been sent to do a small investigation here, as I understand that you recently held an inmate here suspected of being the so-called Lantern Man. Is that correct?
Seems a little suspicious of you, squints slightly. That would be correct. He wasn't the Lantern Man, but we have prisoners here. This is the place where prisoners are taken when to be held before they are hung, or the sick, or the dangerous. Anyone really the councilman wish are kept here.
I see. So, was there some sort of trial following these accusations of this young man? I see now that there has been another murder, so I was thinking that something must have gone wrong somewhere along the line, no?
There was no trial, to my knowledge, and yes, there was another murder just this morning. Who sent you again?
We are here on the temple. I am always working on the business of Hor.
Yes, justice must be done here. Obviously it hasn't been done. There has been some kind of mistrial that has led to an innocent man getting murdered by the government here. That is no good. So we must find the real culprits. Otherwise, this will be a great injustice.
So in a sense, we are in service of the city and of justice alone.
That's all very high and mighty of you. Very good, of course. He does a little awkward smile. He looks very concerned at your presence being here. He looks briefly outside where there is just another random, you notice, individual carrying a large mace, standing on duty, it seems. So what exactly is it you want from me, then? I don't really know how I can't really give you anything much. I'm not really... What do you want?
Well, was he kept in some form of cell during his time here? Is there any remains left from him from his time here?
Well, yes, he was kept in a cell here for a few days, indeed. Yes, that's right. That's all you want? You just want to see his cell?
That's a good beginning, and then that's a good beginning. But more importantly is, of course, to learn anything that you may have learned here. I mean, someone must have interrogated him. He must have said things. Something must have been learned, yes?
Well, a very few people interrogated him, and nothing really was found out, so...
So who was interrogating him?
Oh, I don't remember.
Maybe. Are you sure you are not remembering? I suggest you are honest with us, as we are in the service of the law.
I would be honest with you. Come on, first of all, I've agreed to let you go and see a cell. I'm not on trial for anything.
I tried to see if... is he telling the truth now? Does he know who did the interrogations?
Roll an insight check.
18.
He's definitely holding something back. He's been very nervous about you coming here. He didn't seem so upset about letting you see the cell. That seemed fine. It was all this talk about then someone seeing him. He seems to want to avoid the subject. Maybe not aggressively, just as if he's concerned about something.
Well, then that tells me that the cell is not going to lead to anything, but that the truth perhaps lies with him, and that we must make him spill the beans, so to speak. And I again put forth this little ball of fire that I like to play with once in a while. Yes, you see, justice, it's a funny thing. When people lie to the paladins who perform justice, who carry out vengeance, you see, grave things, ill things can befall those who are not completely honest and not tell everything that such paladins may need to learn, you see. You wouldn't want to anger Hor, would you?
Roll me an intimidation check.
15.
He looks a little concerned at your sudden display of magic. Now see here, what are you doing coming in here? Fire? You're not going to set me on fire? I'm a physician. You can't just attack people. At least here, I have some men. Look, all right. Yes, well, one person came to visit him. Yes, fine.
I narrow my eyes.
Now we're being honest. Excellent, I say, and I look to my compatriot.
Very good, very good. So, you realize, of course, that we are not after the middleman in this process. You have nothing to fear from us. But we need honesty, and we need you to tell us exactly what you know. Who was this man?
He looks really unhappy. It just mutters, "It's Councilman Dory."
Councilman Dory.
Indeed, yes, there we go. Yes, he came to see the prisoner. What of it? He's one of the councilmen.
Does he usually make this a habit of visiting people suspected of grave crimes?
Not often, but, well, I don't question what they do, and they don't question what we do. I just follow what I'm told to do. Now, he stands up. Now, if you want to see the cell, I can let you do that. That's fine. We'll go now, then. But, that's it. Honestly, only Mr. Dory gave him a quick visit, and then he was carted off in a few days. I spoke with him myself, of course.
And what did he say?
Well, what do you think? He's a madman. Claimed all his innocence, didn't do it, all that sort of thing, and then went on about all sorts of silly things and horrible dreams. The guy was clearly insane.
Do you truly believe that he was capable of such a crime? I need you to be honest with me now. You are a professional physician, after all.
No, well, yes, of course he was. The mind breaks, people do insane things. An innocent child can murder their whole family. A loving mother strangle their children. I'm not entirely sure what happened to him, if I'm honest, but whatever it was, sadly, it obviously let it out by wanting to brutally mutilate people and chop off their heads.
He said he had strange dreams?
Oh, yes, dreams of darkness and things from the abyss and horrors and blood, probably trying to hide his crimes under a veil of, it wasn't me. He stands up at this point and goes to get a lantern from a shelf. Well, come on then, we're going to go and see the cell or not. We'll talk on the way. Hurry up.
Very well.
Yes, and I follow him. From the abyss, not from the water, nothing about anything connected with the waterfront, just darkness and demons and that kind of stuff.
He nods, although again he doesn't really seem certain of what he's saying. Maybe not deliberately this time. Well, I'm afraid, young wizard, that you hear a lot of things here. I do not remember all of them, and would not want to for my own sanity. Come, all right, I'll take you to his cell. And he leads you through another heavily locked door, which is opened by an individual. You notice at this point that apart from the boy, him, and these one or two armed men, you're not actually seeing anyone else. He leads you then through a long corridor, which leads off to many locked rooms. As he leads you through, you hear the sounds of screaming, shouting, crying. Various individuals, it seems, would be in all these rooms to the left and right, as he leads the way with a gloomy lantern.
And as we go, I converse a little bit with him and a little bit with Octave, and I ask Octave, are you familiar with anything like this? Dreams affecting the mind? Could it be an indication of some sort of magic invasion?
Well, there was something that came over him. It seems as if he had perhaps been influenced into committing this particular murder at any rate.
Indeed, if he did commit it at all, or if he was just at the wrong place at the wrong time because of this.
That is also very, very possible. There is more to this story, that much is clear, and the magic is involved, and possibly more. And this councilman, the power of the city is clearly involved in this, and either want to keep it quiet or are actively doing this. But for what purpose, I cannot fathom.
He leads you to a big, heavier door, which he then unlocks himself with a set of keys, and leads you down a flight of stairs. you come to an even grimmer looking corridor now. The doors here all seem to have extra locks. Let's hurry now, don't bother anybody. Some of the worst are kept down here, you see. He leads you on. Again, the sounds aren't quite as raucous now. They're a little more sinister. It's almost silent, and every now and again you hear a whimper. At one point you think you hear a child crying. You think that can't be right. There's one cell where suddenly there's a loud bang, and you hear something gurgling from the other side. Again, Tranator just keeps moving forward. He doesn't seem fazed by any of this. Eventually, he leads you to a final cell, takes some keys, and unlocks it. This is an empty cell with a cot for sleep and a chamber pot. It also is full of illustrations. The entire wall has been covered in drawings of various kinds. Here you are. As you can see, he decorated the place a little before he was taken to be hung. I'll be honest, I didn't see the harm in giving a man some chalk to draw before his death. You want his nightmares explained? Well, there you go. Look, wonderful scrawls of a madman.
And I immediately move up to begin studying them. I move into the cell and I begin trying to see if there are any patterns or any symbols that I can recognize.
I hold up my whip. I uncall my whip from my hip holster, and I hold it up, and it, as I murmur softly, it ignites in a light brighter than that of a torch, showing the entire contents of the cell as you investigate them.
I was about to snap my fingers and call forth some light, but then I just look at your whip and I nod approvingly. Thank you.
The physician blinks a little at all your light sources and kind of lets you in, and then he goes to the door and waits patiently. Both of you can roll an investigation check if you like.
20.
I get 4.
You look at the walls first, Alston, and you find it hard to disagree with Mr. Trantor. Random scrawls, strange pictures, little doodles of things. Things that look like monsters, maybe, but, you know, child scrawlings. And at some point it looks like he's drawn some buildings. None of it makes any sense to you, and it does indeed look like the scrawls of a madman. However, to you, Octave, you take a closer look. It is hard to decipher, but there's a few things, actually, that seem to repeat. One thing is very particular. A large picture of some sort of creature with sort of long arms, you think? Maybe 8 of them? 2 black eyes, a kind of blob with arms. It seems to have, around one of them, some sort of rope or a chain. It's very hard to tell, but you are really quite good at examining for finer details. This rope or chain goes to something smaller. It almost looks similar, but it's not quite the same shape, and is much smaller. Above them, the buildings. They look very familiar, actually. Is this perhaps the city itself you're in? You haven't been here long, but you've got a good eye for detail, and maybe this is the city. And there above that is something that looks like a tall building, a very, very tall building. And this is the part that's really quite hard to tell. And you have to look really closely, and you have to think for a little bit, because it's almost as if it's been drawn with a shadow. As if the tower has a shadow going down from it. And it's hard to tell, but due to your intellect, you almost think maybe that's where the shadow would be if the light source was setting. Like maybe the evening, the sun at the evening. Yes, you're pretty sure that, yes, an evening sun would make that sort of shadow from a tall building, wouldn't it? You think? Again, it's all a little bit vague, but these are things you notice.
So this creature looks like some form of large than octopus-like being, right? That's what it looks like, yes? 8 arms, some kind of blob. We know of the the waterfront being involved, that is interesting. I point this out to Alston.
Creature, you say? It looks more like a dandelion to me. If he wasn't obsessed, if he wasn't possessed, he was clearly obsessed. No?
Well, look here, I say, and I show it so that it becomes painfully obvious to you. Yes, see here. And then this I find interesting. This with the shadow coming from... Yes, it's from the tower, yes? From when the tower is hit by the evening sun, the shadow falls just like this. That is what I saw, right?
That is what you saw, but when you point out to Alston, he sees a square with some shading, and sounds very confused by what you say.
Sure. I cannot claim that I see what you see in this, but if you think it is something that would give us a further clue, then I am all ears.
Yes, this shadow, would it then... Does it look like it's setting on some kind of building or something in this city? Does it seem to be pointing something out? Is that what this seems to indicate to me? Like a location of something?
By itself, no. But then again, with your role, actually, if it was connected to the other pictures, yes, maybe. Maybe it actually is the shadow itself is falling on creatures?
So that is where they would be located in that case. That is very interesting, the evening sun. What time is it now? Would we be able to catch the evening sun if we were to go out? Could we... This tower, we have seen it. It is in the city, yes?
You aren't quite sure. You think you did, but that you can't quite remember. You're not entirely sure you saw it from where you were. But it looks very tall, so you assume that people might know it. It's a very tall tower. And the time is now about 4 o'clock, so yes, a few hours still till evening.
Physician Tranator, would you know more about these killings? Do you know if they all took place at a certain time?
Oh, not really. In the more early morning most of the time, I think, or the evening. Hence no one really being able to see anything, other than, of course, his mysterious lantern, which, turned out to be just a lantern with some weird alchemical substance to make it red.
You did find a lantern at the place of the crime?
Yes, he was holding it, along with the knife.
I see. And do you have this lantern still?
No, it's been taken away. Destroyed.
I turn to Octave. Do you suggest then that if this is indeed what you see, a certain light, evening light, or could it possibly be morning light as well?
What do I gather? It seemed to be the evening, yes?
You'd say evening. It's the way it's drawn. Again, you're making a very educated guess here, but you are quite intelligent.
No, definitely the evening. Definitely the evening. I think we should go and see if we can find this building here, this tall building. Tranator, your name was, yes? What is the highest building in the city, in the Styes?
What so? The highest building? I suppose that would be Froffer's Lamp, the old lighthouse.
Would that be located in the city, or is it that would be on the outskirts of the city, or?
Well, it's the low quarter, just going out to sea, obviously. It was a lighthouse, you know. Not anymore.
Not anymore. And if I point that out, this what I have seen from the drawings, if I point that to him, would this look anything like it? Is he able to make anything out if I show that to him?
He comes in and looks a little skeptically at you and says, I don't know, he's drawn a tower. I suppose it's the same tower? Again, I told you, look, it's all mad scrawlings.
You think it could be a light shining from a tower?
Well, there definitely wouldn't be any light shining from it. It's been disused for 10, 20 years.
Interesting. Well, what do you say, friend? I think we have seen what we need to see here. I try to quickly copy some of these drawings down, just to sort of take some notes and make sure that I have documented the most important things that I've seen in here, just if we should ever have to consult this information in the future.
Indeed, and you do so. If you are done here, Mr. Tranator is going to want to see you out. Quite happy to have you on your way.
Yes, and I am happy to be on my way. I do not enjoy particularly visiting an asylum.
Thank you for your cooperation. It was most welcome.
Don't mention it. Honestly, don't. The councilman business is councilman business. I do as I'm told. Please, I don't want to get a knife in the back this morning or tonight.
No, and of course, we have never been here either, I'm sure you would agree. It would not be in any one of our interests, would it?
No, it wouldn't. Good day, gentlemen. Thank you for coming. And he very quickly leads you all the way back through this rather unpleasant place, out the door, and then his man closes it behind him. And you are left to your own devices. Do you head straight to, looking for where this place might be, or do you go back quickly to talk to Master Rephram? He did ask to be told about what you learned, after all.
I think that would be a good idea to drop by with the Master. What say you?
Yes, I think so as well, and you can show him your sketchings. Maybe something of this will mean something to either the victim's sister in this case, or to the Master.
Agreed. Let's do that. So we head back to Master Rephram.
You make your way back quickly. Again, it doesn't take too long to get a skiff that takes you all the way back, and you go and re-meet with Master Rephram. He is very interested in what you bring him, going over all the notes you've taken. You discuss a few things, and he is very excited. Eleanor doesn't really know what to make of any of it. She seems very upset about the contents of the imagery, saying things like, I can't believe what horrible thoughts he was having. And Rephram goes, Yes, you see, look at these things. Like, something was happening with him. What was that, Mr. See, I knew it, Mr. Dory. Now, I'll be honest with you, gentlemen. I'd advise staying away from that for now. It's not something you want to deal with soon. But what do you think of this tower, Octave? What do you say? It's evening, you said.
Evening light, yes. I think we had better see if we can find it. The evening sun is about to, go down, and I think it might actually help shine some light, so to speak, upon something that was important to this. It was something that this man saw, that Jam saw in his dreams. It may be connected to, whatever is causing this.
Certainly. Yes, Frofra's lamp, the old lighthouse. That definitely would be the tallest building in the city. And yes, if you go now, you'll definitely be there by evening shadow. I only worry though, hang on. He goes and collects a few vials. You might not need these, but that is the low quarter. A lot of the low quarter is collapsing back into the sea. It's the worst part of the town, really. Maybe a few, these are potions of water breathing. I don't know if you are skilled in the arts of water exploration, Octave.
No, not at all. I'm good at making water vaporize, but that is basically it.
Water breathing, you say? Do you mean you would encourage us to go down to these sludge-filled...
No, not at all, but I don't know. I wouldn't want one of you falling in, and then you're in trouble. You know what I mean? Best be safe. Sorry, now you're here at least. Here. Just take them. They're quite common, really, here. Again, lots of people have to work in the water, and sailors and all that. Here. He just hands them over to you. He seems quite adamant you take them.
I look at him a bit skeptically, wondering what his intentions are with this, but I accept the gift. It is a fine gift, I think, because I just hope that not too many of these chemicals come from the making of these. And I take one of the potions then for myself.
You can roll an insight check if you want.
8.
You're not entirely sure. But, then again, he's been a very earnest man. If you were to make a guess, maybe he's just really concerned that if you did need these potions later, and you didn't have them, then you'd be in trouble. So maybe he's making double sure.
I nod to myself as I put it in my belt. Very well, as you say, better safe than sorry.
Indeed, it's only because it's the low quarter. It's quite common. People just one day suddenly a whole part of the pier falls into the water. You know, that sort of thing.
Oof, yes, sounds unpleasant. But the lighthouse hopefully will stay where it stands.
Oh, yes, it's seeping slowly, very slowly. 10, 20 more years, it likely will collapse entirely, but for now, it's still leaning into the water. Good luck, then. Be careful. I'm not sure what you could find, but to be careful, and yes, and hopefully you can find something. And Eleanor gives you a parting farewell as well, looking concerned.
I look back at the bird that I fixed later. Has he been doing something with it, or is it whole? Is it?
It's been left, to be honest. You probably imagine he's been more concerned with your investigation than fiddling with anything.
I'm a bit disappointed that he has not appreciated my workmanship. And I huff, and I take my leave.
And the both of you leave his home. And you get a skiff asking the gentleman to take you to Frother's Lamp. He looks a little skeptically at you, but then shrugs. You're paying him coin. And he begins rowing you out to the northwest of the city, which leads, you've been told, to the Low Quarter.
You have listened to a special episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played the adventure The Styes for Dungeons & Dragons. We played a 5th edition conversion of the original 3rd edition adventure that was published in Dungeon Magazine. The adventure is republished and included in the module Ghosts of Saltmarsh that is released on May 21st. The music was from the Cryochamber collaboration Cthulhu and was used with permission from Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com and their YouTube channel for more delicious dark ambient. If you want to support Red Moon Roleplaying, do check out our Patreon. The show would not be possible without all the generous support we are getting there. You give us so much energy, help us cover our costs, and open up time to record and edit. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you.